Inclusive Innovations 2023. Creating a more accessible future together. Panel discussion, Part 1. Robin Spinks, Principal Manager Digital Accessibility at RNIB.
I'm Robin Spinks. I am Head of Inclusive Design at the RNIB, based in the UK, and it's a real pleasure to be here and to have such a great panel. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to pass to my fellow panelists, who will tell you a little snapshot about themselves. And then we've got some questions that we're going to debate as a panel. And what I'm also hoping we can do is actually infuse some of the information that's come out so far in the presentations. There's lots of great conversation topics popping up today. So a little bit about myself. So I have just celebrated 5 decades on this planet, which is a wonderful celebration. I am a 5'10" male. I have a condition called albinism. That makes me very pale. So I have very pale skin, shaved head, a little bit of hair left. And I tend to describe myself as a top letter guy, because people often say to me, how much can you see? That's a really difficult question, because I know how much someone is fully sighted can see when they look at an eye test chart. I went recently with my son for a school screening. He doesn't have a visual impairment. We won't hold that against him. And actually, he read through the chart, and I was sat there as his dad thinking, my goodness, can people really read down to the bottom of that chart? And he could, which is wonderful. But I can see the big letter at the top. So that's a little bit of description in terms of the amount of vision I have without any technical language. I'm lucky enough to work with a great team of around 25 people who are spread across the UK, who we work on inclusive design consulting for businesses small and large. We have a team of web accessibility specialists, ergonomists, orthoptists, product specialists, just a huge range of expertise, architects. We work on everything from built environment to websites and apps and smart TV, even banknotes as well, making sure that there are tactile markings on banknotes for various banks around the world. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to pass to the other end of the arc. So we're all sat in a sort of arc formation. And I'm going to ask Alice to just do an intro.
Alice Barrow, Brand and Digital Transformation Consultant at Unilever.
I am Alice Barrow. I'm Accessibility Lead at CEC, which is a consultancy that specialises in connected packaging. That describes the process of how we connect a 2D pack of a product to a digital experience. And people do that mainly because it continues that consumer arc. So companies want to keep people engaged. We work with a number of fast-moving consumer goods companies, one being Unilever, who I'm here on behalf of today. About last year, October last year, we developed an accessible QR code together with Zappa, which you've already heard about, because we thought that accessible technology solutions on actual product packaging weren't going far enough. They weren't suiting our needs, the needs of the blind and the low vision community. They weren't scalable. And obviously we want to scale. We want to be able to reach as many people as possible. And so we developed that. That has absolutely blown up. It has won a lot of awards, partially because it's the first of its kind. It combines a traditional QR code with screen reader solutions, as Chris said. And as such, we talk to lots of brands about how they can implement QR codes on pack, how they can make their kind of consumer goods, so anything like body wash, foods, ice creams, detergents, how they can make them accessible. And as such, I'm here to talk today. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, Alice. And Jos.
Jos Verbrugge, Lecturer of Psychology at University of Amsterdam.
My name is Jos Verbrugge. I'm 6'6", early 40s, cloony grey hair. I teach psychology at the University of Amsterdam. I'm, I think, a third or fourth row guy, I would say. I have retinitis pigmentosa. So when I started my career, I could see fairly well. I could recognize my students, tell them apart, read textbooks. And over the past 12, 13 years, that slowly degraded. So to me, I now have trouble telling, 9 or 10 students apart in my group, and this is going to increase probably in the coming years. I was invited here by Vanessa because I wrote a piece on the white cane for a Dutch newspaper. And, being in education, being a psychologist, being a lecturer, and going through this process of going blind, I found it interesting to explore the psychological aspects of, having a visual impairment and what it entails and what comes with it, and try to, educate the people here and around the world to, what does this bring psychologically? What are we dealing with, in short?
Lovely. Thank you, Jos. Wow.
Parham Doudstar, Engineering Manager of Accessibility at Booking.com.
Hello. So my name is Parham. I'm going to take a chance and guess that I am the most experienced person in the panel about being blind. I have 33 years of experience on being blind and 0 years of experience not being blind. I can't take any credit for that, though. It was all genetics. So I have been a developer for a large part of my life, which has led to me retreating to my room and not talking to a human being for years. I am now coming out of the room slowly. I came to the Netherlands as an expat in 2016 and started working at Booking.com on the cloud and stuff like that. Too technical. But 2 years ago, I started leading the accessibility team at Booking, which basically works on making it easier for people to book accommodations and trips with assistive technologies. And that's where I've been since.
Brilliant. Thank you, Parham. Jonathan.
Jonathan Ward, Thomas Pocklington Trust.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Ward. I currently work for Thomas Pocklington Trust as the employment manager. The brief from my boss is to try and find ways of helping people who are furthest from work into work. So that's my brief, and that's what I do. Just a little bit about me. I would say I like women of an interesting age. I don't think I need to say anything else other than that. And I have spent, my colleague, my esteemed panelist said he had 33 years of being blind. I have 40 years of trying to support blind and partially sighted people. So I'm trying to work it out. I've probably met and talked to well in excess of 2,000 people with different levels of sight. And had Amit been unlucky enough to live in my area, he would have been to see me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jonathan. And Amit.
Dr. Amit Patel, the blind dad.
Well, you all kind of know me now. One thing I didn't do is describe myself. I always go back to when I could see. I have no idea how I've aged, but from what I remember, handsome, 6 foot. No, I'm not. It's quite a short guy, actually. Asian look here, Asian ethnicity, black hair, neatly trimmed beard. It's probably going grey now. But my day job is TV presenter, author, DEI consultant, and a disability rights campaigner, which I think I spend a lot more time on the whole disability rights side of things than I do anything else, because it's something that I believe very much that we need to change and make it easier for people who are coming through with disabilities to get the help.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amit. And what a wonderful range of expertise on the panel. We brought together some questions, and what I want to do is just dive into those now, and we'll throw those around and see where we get to. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is kind of achieving change and being a catalyst for change. And I wanted to just throw the question first of all out there to how do we think about getting people in an organization to align on accessibility? Perhaps if there are different views and some people are really keen and eager and other people less so, how do we get people to align on accessibility? I'm going to come to Parham first of all, because he's right next to me.
Nice. I actually paid for the spot next to Robin to get most of the... This was actually what I thought I would start to answer in 2021 when I took on the role to lead accessibility at Booking. And I thought, how hard can it be? I'll just go to a whole bunch of people and say, hey, blind people like me, look at me, can't use our platform to book a hotel. And everyone will be like, well, that sucks. Let's sit down and fix it. They did say that sucks, but not the part about sitting down and fixing it. And in my experience, there is a couple of reasons why. It's not lack of empathy. It's also not lack of knowledge based on my experience. It's more, first of all, how do I prioritize this next to all the other thousands of things that we need to do and the promises that were made? And also, how do we get to a point where we can sustain it? So let's even say we got there. What's the plan not to fall back? And I think to kind of like get around these issues, step one, what we started doing was putting in governance. So automated checks, manual checks, in your organization, it might be weekly meetings, monthly meetings, something like that, which forces everyone to sit down and reflect. Are we still in the same place? Are we improving, or are we kind of falling back? And then the second problem was, how do we prioritize accessibility, which is what I'm sure people like Amit are doing in the background, which is raising the profile of, hey, here's a market. This is a really big market, as big as something like China. And they have a lot of money to spend. So kind of raising that awareness so that people naturally start prioritizing this, because like in my experience, money is the best motivator. So yeah.
That's brilliant. And just thinking about money as a motivator in the commercial sector, I wonder, Alice, if you've got any thoughts to add to that in terms of the work you've been doing.
Yeah, I would say it's mainly an issue of understanding and awareness. So there's a level of course, people want to commit to accessibility, but the more you talk to people, if they don't have an understanding of how to make products accessible, or even why, I mean, everybody knows why, but some people don't fully go into depth. And if you don't know how or why, then your now plan, your future plan, you're not going to make your products accessible. And so it's a process of talking to people and making sure they know the how and why. And then you can go further. You can go into your corporate commitments, your corporate pillars, if you make it a key statistic that you have to reach, for example. And quite often, and I mean at Unilever, it's a higher level thing. It's part of the 5 pillars that all products have to be accessible. And if they're not, then there's certain levels of financial things that come into play. And I think there's a whole bunch of corporate resources, as well as the individual brand level of understanding, that can kind of intertwine to make sure that all products are going to be accessible looking forward.
Yeah, brilliant. And thinking about that in terms of corporate commitments and getting that understanding of the how and the why, I wonder if we move to an academic context, Jos, how does that sit there? Does that something that has got a different dimension to it, or is it essentially similar?
I think it has similarities. I mean, you don't need to talk about this is important. You know, you're in university, so you should be open to every student with whatever disability is out there. But the question then is, okay, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to make our, our buildings or our electronic learning environment, how are we going to make it accessible? And that's a difficult question. And what tends to happen is that it sort of circles back on the person needing it. And, growing blind myself, I realized, Amit was talking about asking for help. but oftentimes I don't even really know what I need. I don't know what is possible. So to put this on the students that arrives at the university and asking them, okay, what do you need? It's a pretty big question. So I think for me personally, I would make a point within my organization. We need to be more active, proactive in helping these students. And well, what was said, money makes the world go around. In academia, it's more protocol, I guess, bureaucracy. So if you get, accessibility to be part of the bureaucracy. So, for instance, electronic learning environment systems, we need to allocate on a European-wide basis because we're a very big organization. So if we allocate, if we are asking for some new electronic equipment, we could, in grading them, we could put accessibility on top of the list. Yeah. And I think that would definitely help put some sway power also in electronic companies developing these things.
Brilliant. Picking up on that point about, how do people know what it is that they need? How do they kind of become the problem solver? Jonathan, you've got 4 decades of experience helping blind people and partially sighted people. And I just wonder, are there things that have come to mind for you from your career in terms of what we can do to help individuals? Because we're all sat here as visually impaired people who've been quite successful in what we've done, let's be honest. But how can we inspire that next generation of people coming through? What can we do to equip people with that confidence to understand their needs? Any thoughts?
This is quite a large question. I think for me, it's so difficult. Everyone is so different, and everyone has such different needs. And knowing what you as a person need is really complicated. I always think of the people I've talked to over the years. You will say the first question, and I think we all do it as organisations that support blind and partially sighted people, say, "What font size do you need?" And yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows what font size you need? And would you like it in audio? Well, how many people have I spoken to who don't know what audio is? It's the basics. A lot of it is about the basic understanding of what things like, would you like it in audio? Would you like it in Braille? Well, what is Braille? Is that, it's all of those questions. How do I experience these things? How do I choose? And I think probably I've come to realize, and quite late, I think, is that it's probably about meeting and talking to others with similar issues. It's about the peer support. It's about that lived experience. You can gain so much from talking to people, but not exclusively. So it's about that lived experience with a balance of people who have got professional understanding as well. If you get that balance between professional understanding and lived experience, I think you're starting to move in the right direction towards actually building something that's inclusive and meets the widest area of needs. I know if someone built something especially for me, it would be a disaster for everyone else.
Brilliant. That's a really honest comment. And I wonder, just in terms of connecting with other people, you mentioned, Jonathan, such an important thing that I think it's easy for those of us who've got a visual impairment to underestimate just how impactful that actually is, connecting with other people and sharing your experiences. I wonder, Amit, have you got any thoughts on that from your journey?
Yeah. So last year I was brought into a project called the Sea Monster. It's a government-led project to highlight the quality of scientists and engineers that we have in the UK. And what we did is we brought a disused oil rig from the North Sea into a sleepy town, into a place called Weston-super-Mare in the UK. And this was put into a disused Lido, and we put a 10-foot waterfall over the top of it. We had a weather simulator, we had an amphitheater on the top, and we had a garden deck in the middle. And this was to showcase just how amazing we have, the engineering side of things and the maths and the science that goes behind it. It was a small project. I was brought in from day one, and my brief was to make it accessible and inclusive as possible. Now, it was a tiny little budget. It was something that was going to get dismantled after 6 months. It was 2 years in the making, But yet on the back of that, we won the Blue Loop most accessible attraction in the world. And this is beating Disneyland and all the big name attractions out there. We won that because we spoke about inclusion and accessibility right from day one. We didn't go and remap everything and rewrite the plans. We integrated. There was no two paths. There wasn't an able-bodied path and a disabled-body path. There was one path. But we made sure it worked. And that worked because we spoke to not just the visually impaired community, but we spoke to every single charity out there and made them a part of it. Yeah. And that's how it works. If you can't, it's really hard to retrofit something, and it does come down to money. When you say something doesn't work, making it accessible is probably last on their list. It's everything else first. And we do miss out. We do lose out. But you start talking about that from day one and integrate it, and it's part of the conversation, not an afterthought, but part of the foundation. It's there. It's ready to go. If you use it or you don't use it, it doesn't matter, but it's there. It's ready to go.
Brilliant. Thinking about that notion of it being part of the foundation and being ready to go and being integrated, which is where we all want to get to with businesses, I want to turn to the issue of tipping point. So what has been the tipping point in terms of changing an organizational culture or changing a group of people's understanding on accessibility and inclusion? What has been the tipping point in your view? I'm going to come to Parham, you first of all.
I've got this thing in my head that I can't get out right now about sea monsters. You know what sea monsters eat? Fish and chips.
Yeah, love it.
But on the idea of fish and chips, for me, it's been pointing out the things that are obvious, like fish and chips, which is how do you interact with your everyday tools? And let me kind of like take you through that experience as a blind person. For me, that tipping point for people that I work with has mostly happened when they realize, oh, it's like if I had my screen off and I was just typing with no feedback. How would I know what I was typing? Or, oh, it's like when, if we had the visuals of this thing broken, we would have just fixed it because it was in front of our eyes. One of the reasons that we don't fix accessibility issues is because they're hidden. And then it kind of tips them over to, oh, how can we make them more visible? So for me, based on my experience, what has been the easiest way to quickly go from I don't know to, oh, wow, I really want to fix it, is finding a way where people can connect that missing piece, that missing accessibility or inclusion issue to their own experience of life. And that is going to generate the force to move.
Yeah, so it's kind of about finding something that's a hook almost and getting people engaged and getting them thinking about the issue and moving forward. I wonder, Alice, have you come across that kind of sense of tipping point in any of the companies that you've worked with in terms of the understanding not being there and then it happening and there being a moment to move it forward? Or is it purely financial?
It's a good question. I would say you do unfortunately have to open the door and say, if you do not make your products accessible, then you are missing out on, those 39 million people who are blind in the world, those 285 who are partially sighted, those 2.2 billion that are farsighted. That is a lot of people that if they can't read your products, for example, a Vaseline tub, just because I've got one under my chair, the font on the back of it is maybe font size 3 on Microsoft Word, and I struggle to read that, and I'm mid-20s, and if I've got my glasses I can get about fine, and you're missing out on that huge segment of people. So you do have to open the door with that. I'd then say the tipping point is absolutely the positive stories we get back from that. So from working with institutions, so we work with the RNIB, we work with the CNIB in Canada, and the ACB in America, and we get such positive stories back from people in the blind and low vision community about how assistive technology can really help them be autonomous in their lives. And then at that point, you've walked in the door, you've said, this is a large group of people that you should target. You've then said, it has a huge positive impact. And that is the tipping point. Because if you say no to that, I mean, you can't say no, really.
Yeah, and it just becomes almost a PR story that then propels itself along because it's such a great narrative to tell people what is possible. And also, like, why would you not do it, as you've said? Because it demonstrates ultimately it's about a more equitable route, isn't it? To be
Absolutely.
able to buy products and services, or even just do simple things like make payments, for example, which, can be challenging for those of us with a visual impairment. I wonder, Amit, have you any thoughts around sort of tipping points in terms of the companies that you've engaged with or organizations?
Do you know what? It's when I come across something that nobody else has really realized. There's a supermarkets in the UK that have their own brand of milk. And if you look at the milk, you've got a blue cap, or you've got a green cap, you've got a red cap, you've got a white cap. Whole milk, semi-skimmed, all of this, full fats. But the caps have got a slight different texture on them. So it doesn't matter what color they are, but if you put your hand on them, you can feel the difference. And it's a very subtle thing, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
I normally go into a supermarket and I have to stand there. I have to wait for a member of staff to see me and then come over. How can I help you, Amit? I've got my shopping list. Wouldn't it be great to be able to do what everybody else does, look on the shelf and think, oh, do you know what? That's on offer. I want to grab that. Or I want that. I'm going to give this a go. Oh, that looks good. I can't do that. It's weird. I go in with a shopping list. I come out with exactly what I need. My wife goes in with a shopping list and she doesn't come out with what we need. I want to do that. But it's difficult. It's not everything is accessible. It's not made to be accessible. I guess with supermarkets, it's very much, they put things in your eye line. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter. I want something up the top, but I want the freedom to choose. And that's the crux of it. I want to be able to be spontaneous and pick something because I like, because the order description is like, oh, actually, that's got this ingredient. I love that. Or I don't want this. Or that's on sale. I'm buying everything at full price. I forget the 2-for-1s, so I don't see the 2-for-1s. So I buy one. But it's I want the freedom. So it's funny how I don't go shopping on my own anymore. I take a 4-year-old or a 7-year-old. So we don't come back with what we need anymore. We come back with what they like. But they are enthusiastic. Oh, Dad, look at this. Because all the shelves, all the POSs are made for people who can see, and they get attracted by that. But I want that freedom of choice. But then those little subtle things that nobody really realized when I told a couple of visually impaired people who live in our little village, I'm like, have you noticed the caps are different? Oh no, because I buy the same product all the time. So they've never touched. Yeah. So it's great that, you can incorporate accessibility into product. It doesn't have to mean that it looks horrible. It's a subtle change in something, but it makes it accessible for people like me or like us.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amit. I want to turn now the conversation to something that's really important for all of us, I think. And I think we've started to talk a lot more about it in the recent times, but we need to talk even more about it. And it's mental health and resilience, just in terms of what we do that actually enables us as individuals to be influencers, to be advocates for accessibility, and to make sure that we can continue to enable organizations to raise the bar. So we've all got different strategies. We've got different things that we do to help us relax, but also to help us to kind of pick ourselves up if we find we've had a bad day. We've had a knockback essentially from an approach that we've made either to a company or within a university to create change, and it's just not happening. And we've all been there. You feel a bit despondent and you feel a little bit kind of deflated. I'm wondering what kind of tactics, what kind of strategies do you guys have for building yourself back up when that happens? Jos, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, I don't know if I have an answer, but no, I think it's a continuous struggle. But I also realized at some point we were also talking about asking for help and how difficult it is. And luckily I didn't have like the experience that Amit had. My experience has been that I almost feel like I'm filling a void that people need, that they're like really happy they can finally help somebody out and reach out. It's they're almost getting excited when you walk in with when I have like this signal cane and I walk in and people are really happy that they can do something for me. And I think what helps me at some point was also you don't want to be the blind person all the time, and it really helped for me that at some point there were like visually impaired students started studying, and my senior executives coming to me and asking, okay, what do you think we need to do here? And so I got to champion their needs. Personally, I don't know, I just go to the gym and get my heart rate up so I can't think straight anymore, and then afterwards feel really accomplished. I mean, I think that's the thing that charges me. Stuff like that.
Fantastic. I mean, I like you, I think sometimes like physical activity, going to the gym or taking up running, I do paddle boarding, getting out into nature and just sometimes detaching yourself from every email, every Outlook notification, every ping on your phone, and instead just spend a couple of hours listening to swans and the wind blowing in the reeds and canal barges going past, or get out into the sea and listen to the ocean, and it's restorative and, removes you from it and just allows you to unwind. I wonder, Alice, any thoughts from you in terms of resilience and managing your own thoughts and mental health as an influencer?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly difficult for one because post-COVID, absolutely everything is either hybrid or work from home. So if you have a source of stress, I mean, I work from home for the majority of the time, and it's quite literally invading into your home space, into your personal space. So I just have to remove myself from that because, as I was saying earlier, it's a brand thing. And some brands will turn around and go, we don't want to put accessible QR codes on pack. And I get quite passionate, a little bit emotional about that because that's a moral thing to me. Why aren't you making your packaging accessible? And so I just have to remove myself from that space. I mean, if my email is an hour later, that's not going to have any impact on your yearly quotas or whatever. And I equally, I go to the gym, I run and get an endorphin high and still reply to any negative email while I still have endorphins running through my body and deal with the situation and then possibly have a glass of wine in the evening. But yeah.
That's important too. Absolutely. Just a little of what you like. Jonathan, I wonder if you've had an amazing career helping people, enabling them to change their situations and support people. Any thoughts from you on resilience and mental health, either from your own point of view or people you work with?
Okay, so I guess I like the term bounce back ability. So I think, so I was doing some work with a group last week and we were just talking about that and describing what resilience actually is. And I always, as a starting point for me in the UK, I always look at the Mind website because I think that's a really good place. And they've got five key things, which I think we've talked about here. And I feel a bit guilty saying this in front of a psychologist, but you've got that sort of the idea of giving to others, that idea of being kind to yourself, and the physical exercise we've talked about, and of course I forgot the other two, but it goes on. But I think also it's about looking at what you have done. So it's about looking at what you have done and what you haven't, rather than what hasn't happened. It's easy for me. I can remember a world when, I was fighting for a large print typewriter. We're not talking computers, we're talking large print typewriters. So, and social service who I worked for at the time was saying, well, why do we need to send letters out in large print? And those are the times. Robin's nodding his head, so he can probably remember the same. So it's about things like that. It's things like why do we need to do that? So it's about that attitudinal change. So it's about thinking, actually, we've made that happen. It's not so long ago in the UK that there wasn't any tactile paving on the ground, and now it's everywhere. It was not that long ago that every crossing in London is accessible now, and they've got TfL, Transport for London, have got a commitment that you put your hand under and your little vibrating cone goes round and it's all laid out in exactly the same way. So and if one doesn't work, you can phone them up and they sort it out pretty quick. That, when I started, that wasn't there. So these things have changed. It's a different world. No announcements on. Well, I say that. Mostly there is announcements on trains, and in London there's announcements on buses. If you go into the wider countryside, then so all of those things have changed. So it's about looking at what I think we've collected. We have, and it's not. I can't take any credit, but what's been collectively achieved is quite a lot. But I think at a personal level, it's all of those things that and that's what I'll be talking to people about all the time. It's about being kind to yourself. It's treating yourself, giving yourself little presents, and of course, if you want to go the AI route, then you've always got. Can I say this without anything going wrong? Got Alexa and Headspace and all of the things that it's got lots of AI apps, and I think there's even an AI app that you can talk to. If no one else will listen to you, you can phone them up and have a chat.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. And I think a really good shout there to use the resources that are around you. There's some brilliant kind of voice-driven Headspace, for example. Never think it's for someone else. It's actually there for you. And if you haven't tried it, give it a go, because it might actually be helpful, and it might be something that just, in a moment of madness enables you to feel more calm, more relaxed, and actually just to feel like you've had a chance to stand back and actually just let your emotions subside and become calm again. Amit, you talked really passionately earlier on. In fact, it was really moving for me on a personal level when you talked about your experience of driving. And I just wonder whether, what strategies do you use to kind of maintain resilience and ensure that you stay positive?
What really, really kind of gets to me is the campaigning side of things, because you put so much work into it. It doesn't happen overnight. It's something that sometimes takes years. It's constant emails, phone calls, visits, meetings, but there's an end goal. And for me, it's always taking those tiny little wins and celebrating the wins, because sometimes I don't, like we were saying, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We're there to make a difference. We're trying to make a difference. It doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes it feels like you're on your own and you're kind of bashing your head against a brick wall constantly. But there is change at the end of it, and it's, for me, it's celebrating the small wins. But then I need to take a step back. I get very passionate about things. And especially when someone tells me I can't do it, it's like, it's just easier just to do it and let me do it, rather than me knocking on the door every 5 minutes and change this. But for me, it's enjoying times with the kids. I polish my car like anything. I don't drive it, but I clean it every week. It gets polished, waxed, scrubbed, everything. And I've got a yellow lab as well, so I'm conscious that there's dog hair in the car. Even when she hasn't been in it for a week, I know it's there. But then I like to build things. I feel I'm very, very creative with my hands. I can't see it, but I can see it in my head. I put a 40-meter deck out in the garden. I redesigned our garden. I built an outdoor kitchen because someone gave me a silly quote. I'm like, no, I can do it cheaper than that. I go into my hardware shop and pull out and literally just pick up power tools. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the blind guy's doing this again. And my neighbors watch me do it. I swear they think I'm gonna injure myself and call the ambulance. But it's my time to myself. I know what I'm doing. I'm capable of doing it. But I love doing it. And it just, to me, it's that freedom. I can do whatever I want to. I can be as creative as I want to. But it's my way of turning off. Everybody has their thing. It could be gardening, it could be going for a walk, it could be going to the gym. But you have to, I think you could burn yourself out really quickly. And that's the problem. You don't see the bigger picture. You kind of see a small goal. You just need to take a step back, because things take time. They don't happen overnight.
Absolutely. That wise words. Remember that. Things take time. They don't happen overnight. I think, for all of us, we're using a whole range of different tools. And if you're anything like me, not necessarily power tools sometimes as well. And I'll do a bit of DIY. And, I think it's interesting, isn't it, about, kind of celebrating success. We had a piece of furniture delivered recently that I think my wife and her PA were having a look at to try and assemble. And neither of them could actually get it put together. And I came in and I just put it together and it was fine. And it, they probably had started it off, but I remember feeling like quite successful because I'd completed it and made it into a piece of furniture. So sometimes the little things, actually, you should spend a bit more time just being congratulatory with yourself and saying, look, I managed that, rather than this is a constant struggle. Actually, here are things that have gone well. I'd like to hear from each panel member about a tool that you've used. Could be a physical tool, could be a digital tool that has made a real difference to you in the last year, say, year or two that you've used. So I'll start off. So mine is voice typing. So I've been using a Pixel phone for the last couple of years now, and it's got a number of things in it that are really interesting. But one of the things that's been a bit of a game changer for me is voice typing, where I can actually create a document just by speaking to the phone, and I can go back and I can edit. I can use my voice to remove things. And what I've found is it's enabled me to create documents much more quickly than sitting with a keyboard and a screen, or a keyboard and headphones. So voice typing is my one. I'm going to cast across to Alice, if you've got a tool that you might have used. It could be anything whatsoever.
That's a very good question. I would say kind of anything like Trello or Notion, anything to keep. I always say I have about 900 tabs open in my brain at once. And if I don't write them down immediately when that tab gets opened, it won't be revisited for about 2 weeks. So anything that comes to my mind, I have to put it down or else it will not be happening. And tools like Notion and Trello, I can see the tabs on my screen, and it's fantastic. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Jos?
I don't think they would appreciate it, but using my students as tools would be something that comes to mind. I still have the tendency of asking, okay, everybody, who has experienced something, raise your hands, and, without being able to see who is raising their hands. But now I have students telling me. So students, great tools, especially psychology students. They're really friendly.
Brilliant.
And the other thing is, because we are here with all digital people, so I think we're going to get all the apps. What I found really exciting was I have two kids. They're 12 and 14, and you have like these big size playing cards, but playing games is really hard. The Nintendo Switch, I used to be a gamer, but it's out of my reach. But you have like a trend in cooperative games, which is you're not playing against each other, but you're playing as a team against the board game. So that there's like loads of them. I got introduced it when COVID happened. We played Pandemic, which is, you try to stop the pandemic. But that's a great way to still be able to play with your kids, even though you're visually impaired. So sometimes I think you need to be a little bit creative and not trying to do stuff that sighted people can do, but sort of, create your own way of getting the same stuff to happen.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think on gaming, just a couple of days ago, I had a shot of this for the first time. If anyone's got an Xbox, Forza Motorsport, which is a new title on Xbox, it has a blind driving mode. If you haven't tried it, you've got to try it. It's just fantastic.
It sounds
Parham,
exciting.
What about?
Now I know what I asked my wife to get me is an Xbox. I can't play 10 billion games on it, but I can play one. For me, strangely, and I never thought I would say this out loud, so please don't ridicule me. But there is this breathing app, as if you don't know how to breathe, called Othership, like Mothership, but without the M. And it's about helping you be more calm through targeted breathing. So they do music and they kind of like ask you to breathe in and breathe out through the music, which is really interesting. And I think it kind of like helps me get back to my usual creative, playful, more humorous way when I get too serious, which I sound like this. And it's been really useful for my journey of and this is why Robin never asked me about mental health, because I just burned out in April. I did the fly against the window way of campaigning, which is you just fly into things headfirst, which, as Amit described, you burn out really quickly. So since April, I've been kind of using this, and it's been really useful to reduce random bouts of anxiety that you get post burnout. So if you have something similar, do try this, and it's going to be really fun.
That's brilliant, Parham. Thanks so much for that. I think, if we're honest, for all of us with a visual impairment, we probably are more likely to be anxious. And I think anything that enables us to invest in managing that has to be a good thing. So othership, give it a try. To my right, Jonathan, any suggestions from yourself?
Okay. No chance of me getting on my son's Xbox, or even seeing my son for that person. What I would say is I can't go much further than the smart speakers. I've got both all over my house. I find myself saying either "Okay Google" or "Alexa" all the time. It's like I even find myself walking into the front room and saying "Turn the TV on" and stuff, and it's not even connected. So I just say it more or less. I think I even said, "Alexa, open the car door" once, and it's just a habit now because everything. If I want to play music I want to listen to, or I want to get some information, I want to know something. It's just, it's almost, so it's really weird not to be in a place where you just can't ask the question.
Yeah, brilliant. And Amit, any thoughts from you?
So I mentioned this earlier, liquid level indicator. I travel a lot for work. I am in hotel rooms all the time. The first thing I do is find that elusive kettle, because they don't make it easy sometimes in hotels. It's a liquid level indicator just to make a cup of tea. But also I carry in my bag the little foam dots that you could just put on things just to indicate. When you're in an aeroplane, they say, just push that button if you want help. You don't know where that button is. So I've been there. If you look up and you see an orange dot, Amit's been there, because they will be everywhere. And it's just something so simple. It's for me, when I don't have to think about it, when it's just automatic, it works. Like you say, the smart speakers, absolutely game changers for people who are visually impaired. But the basics, just make yourself a cup of tea.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it.
Inclusive Innovations 2023. Creating a more accessible future together.